edition of Bet. She is Erin Dolan up there in the exciting Bristol, Connecticut area. I'm Anita in the cozy confines of my Hoboken, New Jersey home. And we are bringing Bet to you tonight. Of course, we got a big Monday Night Football game. As always, we're going to preview it. We'll give you our picks, our plays, our props, all of it. But Erin, of course, as always, we like to start off with reaction or no action. And besides football, obviously, another big storyline that's happening right now is Aaron Judge and the Yankees, right? So he finished 3 games against the Orioles without hitting home run number 62. But he's got 4 games now against the Rangers. Will Aaron Judge finish the season with more than 61 home runs? Reaction or no action?
Reaction for me on this one, because at this point you don't want to bet against Aaron Judge. Like you had mentioned, he wasn't able to hit one in the past couple of games, but he is going against the Texas Rangers, who are a totally different story. I'm not saying he's going to be able to get one tonight. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the show, but you don't want to fade a player like Aaron Judge. He knows what is on the line. Nothing's going to slow down in terms of his play. I just think, all things considered, we've been talking about this for so long, the entire regular season, that I wouldn't want to bet against him and say no action. I do think he'll end up getting just one more at least over the next 4 games.
Yeah, I'm reaction here as well. And I shared the story with you before that he has his own batting coach that met him in Toronto, and typically after that he goes on a tear. I think really the big problem here, Erin, is that he is just, it's so much pressure for him to, I think, hit that home run here in the Bronx. He wasn't able to hit 61 here in New York. He certainly couldn't hit 62 here in New York. So I think with the fact that, A, his pitching coach met him in Toronto, now he's out of New York, he's out of the Bronx, he's got a 4-game series against the Rangers, which, by the way, 24 career games against the Rangers. He has 8 home runs. I'm with you. Reaction, I do believe that he does hit 62. Who knows? Maybe 63, maybe 64. It's not 3 games. It's a 4-game series against the Rangers and a doubleheader on Tuesday. Keep that in mind. All right, let's go back to the gridiron. And we're talking about your Eagles. They're your team. Will they win the NFC? Reaction or no action?
Reaction. And no, it's not just because I'm a fan. I actually had a conversation with a couple analysts that were here today, and I'm like, it's really hard for me to say I love the Eagles because I'm so tied to Philadelphia. But they were like, look, top to bottom, looking at that roster, they're really, really good. And of course, you could always factor in they didn't play good competition. But what we saw against the Jags, who actually are a top 10 defensive unit, don't get it twisted. Yes, the Jags overall, we think of them as being a bad team, but defensively, they're really good. I know they went down 2 scores, but they were still able to come back, cover the spread, get that win, and they just have a plethora of options on that offensive line. If they need to throw the ball, they got the wide receivers to do that. They can also run the ball. And then on defense, they're able to really just stop and shut down other teams. I just think this is the year that they go and they win that NFC. All things considered, look, we're 4 weeks in. They have to stay healthy. All things need to go their way. We need the stars to align. Nobody needs to get injured, things like that. But overall, I really like what I'm seeing from Jalen Hurts, and he's proving a lot of people in Philadelphia wrong right now who were very skeptical coming into the season of if he was really going to be that dude.
Yeah, reaction for me, Erin, you know I've been on your Eagles team for quite a while now. You and Joe Fortenbaugh, I get it, the pessimism of Eagles fans because you've been disappointed so many years. But this is an Eagles team. By the way, let's rewind. You could have gotten them to win the NFC East alone at plus 130. Now it's minus 300. Hopefully you jumped on it. We were talking about it months ago. But yeah, I mean, reaction here for me. Another thing, if you recall, when we were picking what our Super Bowl matchups were going to be, mine, the Eagles, and the Chargers. Granted, the Chargers dealing with so many injuries. We'll see what happens. Can they rebound from all the injuries that they're facing? But I'm already on it. I'm already on the Eagles. So it's reaction from like 3 months ago. I'm already on the Eagles to represent the NFC at the Super Bowl. So this is old news for me.
Love that.
Josh Allen, right? I know you do. Josh Allen, unbelievable performance yet again against the Ravens yesterday. Will he win the MVP at plus 275? Reaction or no action?
No action for this one. I mean, 3-1 is just not great value at this point anymore. In terms of actually winning it, I do think he has a shot, but I'm just not sure. I need to see even more from him. He has looked so great. And in fact, yesterday, I texted one of our producers of the show, Eddie Marlette, and said, Josh Allen, question mark, my God. He didn't answer that text at all. And then at the end of the game, I said, all right, I guess I spoke too soon. And he was correct. But no, Josh Allen has looked great. He's sitting behind Justin Herbert right now in terms of his passing yards. I just personally wouldn't want to put any money on this at 3-1. You got some other guys coming down the board, like you got Jalen Hurts up there, Patrick Mahomes, who's looked honestly really good, especially after what we saw last night. I thought that Bucs defense was going to be able to shut down that Chiefs offense, and that just wasn't the case. I will say, when you're looking at Matthew Stafford, a big point of making the case that he would be able to win it is the amount of competition that he's beaten so far. You got the Rams, you got the Titans, who were a playoff team last year, looking nothing like that this year. They lost to the Dolphins, but you could argue that they were outplayed in that game. And then the Ravens, obviously, they had to play from behind. It seems like this team sometimes when they are playing from behind, you get Stafford who's putting up a ton of points. It's just really no action for the value point of this at 3-1, and obviously some other guys sliding down the board, and it's still just, we're heading into week 5, guys. We got a little ways to go.
Well, it is reaction for me because, what was probably more impressive to me yesterday against the Baltimore Ravens is because of the weather conditions, he couldn't really throw the ball extremely well, or better than most, but still not so great. So he rushed for 70 yards. It's like, pick your poison. Like, how do you want Josh Allen to, kill you, right? Through the air or on the ground. And he can do it either way. So really uber unbelievable, really impressive performance to me against the Ravens. And I think we're going to be talking about this. We're going to be seeing this week in and week out. So for me, it's reaction because, hey, if I can still get it at 3-1, I think as we get closer to the end of the season, Erin, I don't think it's going to be at plus money. I think it's going to be at minus 130, minus 150. As we get closer to the end of the season, we continue to see him ball out like he does. But I'm with you. I think Jalen Hurts at 5-1, those are better odds. My suggestion is sprinkle it around a little bit. Just don't bet on one dude to win the MVP. Hedge your money. Put a little coin on a few other guys, especially guys with some better odds. That's how I would play it. Before we start doing a deeper dive into this Monday Night Football game, let's hear from some of our beat reporters who always do a phenomenal job covering the teams. Of course, we're going to hear from Sarah Barsha, who covers, of course, the Rams, and Nick Wagner. We'll start with him on the 49ers. Let's listen in.
Thanks, Anita. Niners quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo has been here since 2017, but it's safe to say this season is still a work in progress. Asked this week how he's bouncing back from that unusual offseason and how he can find a rhythm, Garoppolo said, it's a long process. It will take some time. Well, the Niners don't have a ton of time. They're sitting here at 1-2 with a defense that's been one of the best groups in the league in the first 3 weeks. And the Niners offense has struggled to keep up. Garoppolo knows that if he doesn't get it going quickly, the scrutiny will be on him. That's a responsibility he's willing to accept, saying, that's something that I'll take on. I always have, and I always will.
Entering week 4, the Rams have the NFL's 4th worst rushing attack, averaging 72.3 rushing yards per game, which is easily the worst in 6 seasons under head coach Sean McVay. Now, they did get a spark in week 3 against the Cardinals, as McVay said Cam Akers looked like the Cam of old. And he said he saw that sense of urgency he was looking for since he talked to the running back about it during training camp. Now, it doesn't get any easier on Monday night, as the 49ers ranked first in the league in Football Outsiders rush defense DVOA. And history isn't on the Rams side either, as Sean McVay is 0 for 6 against the 49ers during the regular season.
All right, so Erin, it is our time and our turn to do a deep dive into this Monday Night Football matchup. As we know, the line, it was at 1.5. Now the 49ers -2. Give me an idea where the money is flowing. Also, the over-under is at 42. How are you playing the game, Erin?
I'm going to have to go with the over here. It's at 42, and it's come down just way too much. But before I get into that, I just want to talk about that spread because this is a really difficult game to handicap, considering the 49ers have really owned the Rams as of late. But I will say more money and tickets are coming in on the Rams, so seeing that line is moving up in the 49ers' favor right now means sharp money is coming in on the 49ers. Now back to that total. So the look-ahead line last week was 47.5. opened 45.5 and continues to be bet down. It's now down to 42. It just seems like there's so much money pouring in on this under. It makes sense for it to come down. I get the reasoning behind it. Bettors thinking, well, there's injuries on both sides of the ball. On top of that, the 49ers have a stout defense, and I get all those things, but the number is just too low for me. I feel like I have to take that over there. When you look at these teams in the last 11 meetings that they faced each other, they've averaged 52 points. The 49ers, the last 5 meetings, have put up at least 23 points. On top of that, averaging 28 points through those 5 games. There's a part of me that thinks this could be a little bit more sloppy, and at some point the Rams, I feel like, are going to come out firing. They have a ton of weapons, so we haven't seen them look back to that normal form since we've seen from the Super Bowl. But at that time, I'm not sure. It might come in prime time. You're not sure when the Rams are going to really come out of the gate, start attacking. I also think the team is better with Jimmy G under center. I could sit here and argue with you about Jimmy G versus Trey Lance. I just think Jimmy G, honestly, I'd rather have him as my starting quarterback right now. We know the Lance obviously is out for the entire season, unfortunately with that injury, but I don't think this is a terrible thing for the 49ers to have him back under center.
Well, again, something I've been preaching for months now is Trey Lance was just not ready. So lockstep with you, Erin, in regard to Jimmy Garoppolo. I didn't understand. Well, I understand in regard to where they drafted him and all what they gave up to move up to get him. I understand the reasoning behind it, but we're on the same page here. Jimmy Garoppolo, better quarterback for this 49ers team to win. By the way, he's 6-0 in the regular season against the Rams. Of course, we heard the beat reporters talk about before. Of course, Kyle Shanahan 6-1 against the Rams, 8-3 against the spread. Here's where it really, to me, why I'm on the 49ers. And I got them at -1.5. I jump on them as soon as possible. Their defense is just sick. They're getting the #1 pressure rate, and they're not even blitzing more than 40% of the time. Meanwhile, you've got a Matthew Stafford offense that looks nothing like the team that won the Super Bowl. It's Cooper Kupp and nothing else. Allen Robinson has not been able to really deliver like we were expecting. The rushing game is anemic. So a big reason why I like the 49ers. And we're on the opposite side here. I'm on the under. I did a deeper dive into the officiating crew, Erin, that's working tonight, and it's Brad Allen. Division games so far this season for him, 15-3, the under has hit. And also division games since 2016 for the Brad Allen crew, 23-12. The under has hit 66% of the time. And again, just because of how good the San Francisco 49ers defense is, I really do believe that the under is going to hit. So that'll be interesting. I'll be texting you throughout the game. With that being said, let's talk about some of the quarterback props out there that have caught your eye. What are you playing quarterback-wise?
First one I'm looking at is Matthew Stafford to throw an interception. And this isn't just because of the 49ers defense. Matthew Stafford is typically prone to throwing interceptions. So he's thrown 5 in the first 2 weeks. He didn't throw one last week, which is honestly good for the Rams. But these teams played each other 3 times last season, including that NFC Championship game. He threw a pick in all of those. In fact, him throwing a pick was one of my best bets I remember from that NFC Championship game when we did daily wager. So we know everything going on with that defense for the 49ers. They can really pressure him, get him to throw the ball quicker. He ultimately ends up throwing a pick. Another one that I just added into my arsenal here, I talked about this on Daily Wager, Jimmy G over 28.5 passing attempts. Okay, this isn't completions, this is attempts. I do think that knowing that this Rams secondary is just so depleted, allowing wide receivers to really go off through the first 3 weeks, you might see a situation where Jimmy G feels more comfortable to throw that ball to the wide receivers, given the Rams are depleted against the pass. They're ranked 23rd in the league right now. Their completion percentage allowed 29th. It is a banged-up area, and yes, they're trying to make strides and get better, and Jalen Ramsey's trying to really rally the troops there, but I don't think that's going to change this primetime game. So Jimmy G over 28.5 passing attempts as well.
Yeah, so for me, I am fading Matthew Stafford tonight. So I'm going under 247.5 passing yards. I'm going under 35.5 attempts. I'm going under 36.5 for his longest completion, and I do believe he throws an interception as well, Erin. You know, the offensive line is still a huge issue. I just shared with you how aggressive the 49ers defense is, providing the most pressure against opposing quarterbacks and blitzing less than 40% of the time. Get this, Matthew Stafford is 4 of 14 with 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions when he tries to throw a pass 15 yards or more. So, yeah, for me, I am just fading Matthew Stafford tonight for sure. Let's take a look at the other bets, the other prop bets that we like outside of the quarterback position, wide receivers, running back, tight ends. Who else are you playing tonight, prop bet-wise?
Well, I just talked about that Jimmy G passing attempt. So I'm going to look at a wide receiver tonight, Deebo Samuel, to go over 55.5 receiving yards. Now, this line has kind of been all over the place. I've seen it as low as 51.5. It was at 57.5 today on Caesars, back down to 55.5. So it has been moving around. And obviously, there, like I mentioned, there's a plethora of wide receivers you can choose from. But Deebo Samuel, he's had at least 95 receiving yards in the last 3 matchups against the Rams. All those came last season. He's hit over 55.5 receiving yards in the last 4 meetings against the Rams. Again, that secondary is depleted, and I think that Jimmy G can really take advantage of that and get the ball to a Deebo Samuel type player. I really wish that somebody would have posted on Caesar Sportsbook his rushing and receiving yards posted together, but they would have put those up for tonight. So I'm going to take him to get it through the air and get over 55.5 receiving yards.
Okay, you know me. It's a Cheesecake Factory menu of prop bets,
sure.
so buckle up.
Are there 10?
Buckle up. Obviously, Brandon Ayuk is one of them. But let's start. I'm with you in regard to Deebo Samuel. 5 games he's gone up against the Rams. 30 receptions, 463 yards, and 2 receiving touchdowns. He's rushed for over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns against them. He's had 20 rushing attempts against the Rams last season. Again, I call him the elixir in this Kyle Shanahan system, so therefore he's going to be utilized a lot. Brandon Ayuk, over receptions as well as yards. He is the legit #1 wide receiver in this offense. 8 targets last week. He's averaging 30% of the target share in 2 weeks combined. And I do believe that George Kittle is going to have to stay home to help with pass protection since they are missing their left tackle. Robbie Gould, over 1.5 field goals, over 6.5 points. He scored 9 and 7 last season during the regular season against the Rams. They believe in him. I do believe that that he's going to be a big part of the. I do believe he's going to be a big part of course, scoring some points. And last but not least, Tyler Higbee, over receptions and under receptions and under receiving yards. Why? The 49ers, they are so good against tight ends. Tight ends are only averaging 2.3 yards per target. And so I do believe that he's going to have a tough time against this 49ers defense. Your thoughts on my prop bets?
Well, you always bring a plethora, which I always admire about you, Anita, really deep diving into that research. We've been kind of on the same side this entire show. I like the Deebo Samuel, the receiving, as well as the rushing. I, unfortunately, was able to find that on Caesars. I'm assuming you found that on a different book, which is absolutely great. You can always shop around, guys. Remember, you can always shop around for props that you like. And you talk about Ayuk, I think that's a great one. I know he's on your shirt for tonight. And the 49ers, they can really take advantage of all the wide receivers that they have. I mean, I know they got George Kittle back, but when you deep dive into the numbers for George Kittle, he's not really getting as many targets and receptions as you would expect. Maybe, Deebo Samuel's taking over the majority of those, and you got Ayuk right behind him. So any wide receivers I do feel for the 49ers are a good shot for tonight. I obviously am more focused on a Deebo Samuel, just like you, Anita, but overall, I really liked all your analysis on those picks.
All right, it is time for Paydirt Picks. Guys that we think are going to score touchdowns. We always look back before we look forward. And last week, you were expecting Sterling Shepard to score a touchdown. Unfortunately, he did not. And unfortunately, even so, towards at the end of the game, he tore his ACL. So you're sitting at a little over $100. I had Saquon Barkley to score a touchdown. That did happen. Pollard Galladay did not. So I'm sitting at 87.75. So we're both still in good shape here. What are you playing? Who are you playing? Who do you have scoring? It's Monopoly money. Who do you have scoring tonight in this Monday Night Football matchup?
I gotta go with Deebo Samuel in this one, just because we liked him so much in terms of his rushing and receiving props. You can combine them like we had talked about. I just think this guy's gonna find the end zone. You had talked about this being a low-scoring game, so even though I'm saying take the over because it's at 42, I just think it's really, really low. I don't expect there to be a ton of touchdown scores tonight, so I'm only going to go with one, just like I did last Monday night when that total was super low. Unfortunately for Sterling Shepard, I feel so bad for this guy. I feel like he continues to get injured over and over again. But I do think Deebo Samuel, I wouldn't be surprised if he could punch it in, grab the ball from Jimmy G. And let me tell you something, Jimmy G, if you break down the numbers between Trey Lance and Jimmy G gets that guy the ball. That is his go-to guy when you break down the numbers. So I think if anybody, Deebo Samuel will get a touchdown tonight.
For me, again, lockstep with you as well in regard to Deebo Samuel. 6 touchdowns in 7 total games against the Rams. And as I said before, I look at him as that elixir, that Swiss Army knife player in Kyle Shanahan's system. And the way that he's utilized when Jimmy Garoppolo is at quarterback is pretty tremendous. And also I'm going Cooper Kupp here because it's been the Cooper Kupp show pertaining to this Rams offense, right? 3 of the 4 passing touchdowns that Matthew Stafford has thrown so far this season, yes, and it's only been 4, mind you, has gone to Cooper Kupp. Allen Robinson here's the thing, Erin, we heard all these phenomenal things about Allen Robinson at training camp, right? I mean, and I was expecting big things from him. I drafted him on a few of my fantasy football teams, but I have since dropped him. There's obviously, there's a disconnect there. I think a lot of it also has to do with the fact that the comfortability level between him and Matthew Stafford not getting a lot of time because Whitworth is gone and that offensive line is not protecting him like they did last year. I do want to circle back with you on this because we heard from Sarah Barshop just a second ago on Bet, and she was talking about how Sean McVay really was singing praises for Cam Akers. There's been, you're not able to really grasp how that backfield is playing out with the Rams, right? Because it's Henderson, it's Akers. Is Akers in the doghouse? Is it his Achilles? What is it? But now that we heard from Sarah, are you leaning more? You think Cam Akers is going to have a big game tonight?
Here's the thing, and I just want to talk about this before we even get into that. We are on a show to talk betting, and when we have to come up with these coaches' game plans, which is what we all predict as analysts, it actually is pretty wild when you think about it. How much is Cam Akers going to be used? We are in the minds of these coaches. With that being said, it's hit or miss with Cam Akers. We've had a ton of people talk about him in terms of fantasy, in terms of betting, and he just hasn't produced the way we were expecting him to produce. I mean, you got a guy like Cooper Kupp. Why are you not throwing to him? You know what I'm talking about? Especially if he's playing lights out, great every single game. I'm not really sure what the game plan is really going to end up being. We're all speculative of he might finally go up and look the way we expected. He might not. He's kind of a guy I would stay away from right now just because it has been just so inconsistent, so up and down. So I'm not really sure if you feel that way, Anita, or if you would feel fine betting on a guy like Cam Akers. Just for me personally, I would be out on that.
I'm staying away from the backfield. With all due respect to Sarah and what Sean McVay is saying, I need to see it before I believe it. So I'm not playing any kind of prop bets in regard to the running backs. I'm not playing Cam Akers on my fantasy team. I might regret it. Who knows? But I need to see it before I believe it. We've got Chris Fallica who's going to be joining us momentarily, but before we start talking college football, I want to circle back to what's going on with Aaron Judge, right? Mm-hmm. As we know, 4-game series against the Rangers, going up against Martin Perez, who's 12-7 with a 2.93 ERA, left-handed pitcher, 167 strikeouts so far this season. As we know, Judge, career 24 games against the Rangers with 8 home runs. But at the same time, we know, we talked about it a little bit earlier. I truly believe that he just had so much pressure here in New York at the Bronx to try to hit number 62. Are you going to be playing? What are you going to be playing, if anything, for him to hit another home run tonight?
I'm sure everybody in the Yankee Stadium just had their glove ready, just hoping to cash in on a $500,000, $1 million ball that's coming their way. But it didn't happen. I don't think it's going to happen tonight, considering Martin Perez is on the mound for them. Like you mentioned, Aaron Judge, 1-9 in 12 plate appearances against this guy. And he actually played for the Boston Red Sox last season, and he allowed 3 home runs to the Yankees, but none of them were Aaron Judge. And just considering his ERA is so good right now, and it's even better when playing at home, or not better, I should say, it's still relatively good. 3.02 ERA at home off of a 2.93 ERA overall, 12-7 record. I mean, Aaron Judge is that guy who is superhuman. I mean, maybe it happens at the end of the game when a relief pitcher comes in, but I'm not really sure he's going to be able to get one tonight. So sometimes it's important to know what not to bet. And I talked about this a couple times because everyone was waiting for the Aaron Judge homer, waiting for it, that 61st. And there were some games where I went on Daily Wager and I said, hey, tonight I really don't think he's going to hit one. So I do think in this game tonight you stay away from it. But again, if you're feeling like, you know what, he might at the end of the game, go for it.
I've been doubling down, tripling down, quadrupling down on him hitting a home run. every time he's at bat. And so I'll be playing it. It's kind of like, when you play the roulette table and you're betting red. Like,
I've seen that go very bad. I've seen that go very bad in Vegas. Don't do it.
Eventually red's gonna hit if you just keep on. Anyway, so
you think it.
And I'll go back to what I shared with you at the I'll go back to what I shared with you at the beginning of the show, right? And that is, I had gotten wind that his batting coach met him out in Toronto and had a little tune-up. Now, granted, that tune-up did not work out great with of course the Orioles here in the Bronx. I think he's just pushing too much. So I think being away from the Bronx is going to be great for him, and I'm expecting him to hit 62 definitely while he's in Texas. We'll see what happens. Okay, so we're going to switch to some college football. We've got Chris Fallica who's joining us. Chris, welcome into Bet.
Hello, how are you?
How you doing?
I'm
great.
okay.
Great to have you.
Hanging in there.
Let's dive into it, and it is the story of the week, is it not? If you were watching the Arkansas-Alabama game, you saw Bryce Young go down, shoulder injury. This week now you got Texas A&M coming to town, little revenge game. What do you know? Fill us in on the Bryce Young injury if you have any new information, and more importantly, how are you playing this matchup?
It doesn't sound like Nick Saban is very concerned about this injury. I mean, he made reference on Saturday about how this is something that Bryce has dealt with a couple of times while in Tuscaloosa, and it's worked itself out pretty quickly. They don't need him this week to beat Texas A&M. This is a game that a lot of people had been looking forward to, but A&M, frankly, just isn't very good. They need Bryce Young to be healthy next week when they go to Neyland Stadium to play Tennessee on the road. That is a trouble game because Tennessee's offense can score points. So as long as Bryce is ready for next week, I think that's all Alabama really needs, because A&M's offense isn't capable of scoring points right now. They have quarterback problems of their own. They're terrible in the red zone. A lot of 3-and-outs. This is probably an under-type game. That would be the only thing I'd really consider betting on here in case Alabama does have to go to the backup. Who's quite capable, by the way, but I just don't see A&M being able to score many points at all.
Let's talk about another big team, the Georgia Bulldogs. They needed a second-half rally against Mizzou to get that win. We know this week they're going against Auburn. Are you concerned at all about this matchup?
No, I'm really not. I mean, Auburn's a team that last couple of weeks have been in a couple of ridiculous games. That they won the game that they should have lost, and they lost the game they should have won. But at the same time, I almost wonder if privately Kirby Smart's kind of happy that they struggled on Saturday as much as they did, and they were able to pull it out. Now he has an opportunity to kind of bring everybody in. Okay, see, you're not as good as your headlines. Last year was last year. What you did last year doesn't mean anything for this year. I think his bigger concern right now will be making sure he gets Jalen Carter back for the Florida game at the end of the month, and some of those other tougher games that they have left on the schedule. Now, as far as laying 30 points, I don't know if I'd want to do that. Like the Alabama A&M game, it kind of feels like it's an under-type game. I can't see Auburn scoring very much at all, so I'd be looking probably at an Auburn team total under here, being that their quarterback play is so bad.
We got to talk about Kansas, right? 5-0, knocking out off Iowa State. They've already surpassed their win total at 2.5. They've been really unbelievable. Now they're a 3-point home dog against number 17 TCU on Saturday. What do you make of this Jayhawks team?
Well, you've got the 0.01% chance of this matchup featuring two undefeated teams, so that's kind of like the wow factor. You got one ranked matchup this week in the Big 12, and it's not Texas Oklahoma. I think that number's actually been bet up quite a bit in this game. I think I saw some TCU 6.5, 7, which feels a little high, even though Kansas had the big loss on the offensive side of the ball with the injury in the game against Kansas State. I worry about TCU coming off of two consecutive emotional wins, a win over SMU, their rival, and then the blowout win over Oklahoma where they went up and down the field. Now you go on a road against a team which has found ways to win games in shootouts, and found ways to win games in a lower scoring game, even though Iowa State did everything to help them on Saturday. 6.5, 7 feels like it's too many points in this game, at least right now. I'm curious to see if it moves off of 6.5, 7 as we go on throughout the week.
Fantastic. Bear, thanks so much for joining us on Bet. Really do appreciate it. Enjoy the Monday Night Football game tonight.
Of course. Absolutely. You do the same.
You got it. You got it. Hey, we've got about 45 seconds left in the show. Erin, I just want to put up a graphic. Switching to some NFL, here are some of the lines that are out right now. I tell people, run, don't walk. Get on these lines before they change. The Dolphins -3 against the Jets. The Jets beating the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think people are underestimating Teddy Covers, who's 24-6 against the spread on the road. Also, the Vikings against the Bears. Are you kidding? Only 6.5. Jump on this before this jumps up to 7, 7.5. Tennessee finally coming to their own. The honeymoon with Carson Wentz in Washington is over. Also, I like Detroit and the Patriots over at 46.5. Their third-string quarterback almost helped the Patriots beat the Green Bay Packers. Are you kidding me? Meanwhile, Detroit scores at least 30 points on their own. So I like the over in that game as well. Again, hashtag run, don't walk. Get to the window before those lines change. Erin, thank you so much. Always great doing the show with you on Monday. Enjoy the Monday Night Football game. Erin has the over. I have the under. I'm going to be blowing her up on text messages. You can guarantee that. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in to Bet. Appreciate it. Enjoy the game tonight.